This is Uncommonly Remarkable, where we discuss the surprising everyday lives and notable accomplishments of community leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday folks like you and me. My name is Artis Beatty. I am a doctor of optometry and the chief medical officer for MyEyeDr OD. Though we will inevitably touch on topics within my area of expertise, the opinions and the conversations held here are separate from my work with MyEyeDr. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Uncommonly Remarkable. Today's guest describes himself as pragmatic, driven, analytical, reflective, and interested. He is the founder and CEO of Crossrope, a company that he describes as working hard to make jump rope fitness more prolific and engaging to help people achieve their health and wellness goals. Expect to learn about the invention of a product and the development of an idea, but also a little about flying and exercise and fitness and much, much more. Everyone, please welcome my friend, Dave Hunt, to Uncommonly Remarkable.
Thanks, Artis. It's great to be here. Super excited for the conversation.
Well, I'm just happy that you could take the time and spend some time with us today. You know, it's very exciting to have you come and sit with me. We have an interesting story of getting to know each other. So, I've met people in various ways. I would refer to you as my mailbox friend. So when we were first moving into the neighborhood, we were here watching the house come together. And the house is kind of next door to the community mailboxes. And people would come and go. But I think I saw you at the mailbox almost every time we came to the house. And we just had conversations. And I thought that interesting guy, similar interest. And so it's good to actually get to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting how mailbox in a neighborhood can be such a great way to meet new neighbors and to connect in a way that maybe is reminiscent of how it always used to be in neighborhoods. And now it feels like it's less of a thing amidst the hustle and bustle of the day-to-day. But I've met some great neighbors since we moved in. And maybe that's one of the most enjoyable parts of a new neighborhood. Everybody's coming in together and is looking to connect.
I think so. And I think here in particular, because, you're starting from scratch. So everybody's kind of coming at the same time, which is a little different than maybe traditional neighborhoods where people are in and out, maybe one family or two at a time. And so it just really has been a really good experience for me being here. I honestly have met some very, very interesting people with really cool stories, yourself included.
Love to hear that. And again, it's one of the things that I've appreciated most about living in a couple places, being in different neighborhoods, meeting neighbors in all sorts of professions and walks of life, is it keeps things fun and fresh and interesting. And you're always trying to find those common bonds and those things to connect on. And so that's why it's been great to be friends with you the past couple of years.
Dave, when we first started talking, we talked a little bit about just general health and fitness. And, I do a lot of random things, and jump rope was one of those things that I do on occasion. It took me years to learn to go from being able to do a single under into a double under. And I don't know how we got onto that conversation, but that's when I learned about Crossrope. And so talk to us a little bit about your company and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. Crossrope is a weighted interchangeable jump rope system. And most recently, there's a connected element to it. As connected fitness has grown and people are more and more interested in tracking their metrics and their progress. And what we've really put a lot of effort and energy into is at a very granular level, thinking through every step of the experience to help to make it a more enjoyable experience. Because most people, when they think of cardiovascular training, fitness, endurance type stuff, you get a small proportion of the population that loves that, and you get a large proportion that hates it. And so a lot of what I've enjoyed building with my team is an experience that many people say is fun, addictive, and game-changing.
That's awesome. So talk to us a little bit about the idea, though, because I think when you think about jumping rope or a jump rope, your mind may go to a fairly simple device that is got some handles on it, maybe a cable in between. It doesn't normally have an adjustable length, meaning you gotta fit it to where you are. You may cut it and knot it, or maybe you think about being a kid and you've got double Dutch and the little beaded ropes that you had when you were in grade school. But this product is different, and I think you are addressing a different part of the market.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I'll explain to people that jumping rope is so interesting because it's a little bit more broad and segmented than most people would think. And so, yeah, there's the nostalgic element. Most everyone has jumped rope as a kid. Maybe they did double Dutch. Maybe it was a playground activity. And so the mind share for some people is, oh, that's kind of a kid's fun play thing, but not for me. Interestingly enough, at the other end of the spectrum, you have the top boxers and mixed martial artists using this as a hardcore element of their workout. And so you have the whole spectrum from this isn't a serious fitness tool, a kid does it, to, oh, I can't achieve what those top tier athletes are doing. And a lot of our mission has been around, bridging the gap and bringing more of the middle in there. And that's really where we thrived, because a weighted rope and the approach that we take to it can be easily integrated into another pre-existing fitness routine, or the way that we've approached it can really be standalone. And some people really crave simplicity. And when you have the weighted ropes and the light ropes and the various interval workouts, there is such an opportunity to get an efficient full body workout in less time when people are busy and have a hard time finding the time to get fit.
And it's portable, right? Like you get the ability to take it with you where you go. And that makes it fairly convenient. Now, when I travel fairly frequently, and I have a routine of the things that I'm going to take with me. But one of the things that I always take with me is a rope. Right. I've had some very interesting conversations with TSA, by the way, about these ropes, because if you've got a new person who's there and they put it through, they're like, what is that? And so then you get to talk about, oh, this is my rope, et cetera, et cetera. So, as we are now thankfully on the other side of pandemic, right? But during the pandemic, people had to rethink how they were going to stay fit. And I think that really affected your company. And what things did you notice during that period that were maybe different than what you'd seen up until 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when you're living it and seeing what goes on behind the scenes, you can sort of tether your personal experiences and a lot of what you hear through media sources with what you're actually seeing on the other side with business. And so for me, it's so ingrained and made so much sense, the level of growth that happened for a lot of companies, including ours. So, for example, I remember January of 2020, there was the first whisperings of COVID, and there wasn't any cases in the U.S., and then it was like 6 cases. And we started to notice in January, we had already been growing, at a pretty healthy clip up until this period of time. But we started to notice that, day by day, just a little bit more above what we had forecast, nothing obvious. And then I remember, I think it was one of the Lakers players that got COVID back in like March, like 16, 17, 18, right in that time frame. It seemed like everything escalated in a heartbeat. And for us, we went from, within the span of about 5 to 6 weeks, we increased our daily volume almost tenfold in about 5 to 6 weeks,
wow.
Which is a massive business challenge at the same time when, the world was trying to figure out what the impact and ramifications would be. And so I think our philosophy on that was, now that everybody was interested in finding all the activities that they could do at home that they hadn't had a chance to do before, that were maybe healthy habits that they wanted to build, all of that attention and awareness is there. And we were just laser focused on fulfilling as much of that interest and demand as we could at that time. And we feel like we did a good job of that in 2020.
And so when you reach the point where you're hitting March, we're seeing the acceleration of people who are thinking about, my gym is closed, I need to figure out what I'm going to do, I have options at home. At that same time, there were lots of fitness products that were just not available, right? And so it didn't happen in March, but it was maybe June, July when people had started making decisions and gyms were actually closed and people weren't sure if they were going to open. People were starting to really look for ways to bring things in. How did you deal with the supply and demand, considering most industries were having a hard time producing things with workers who were needed to be out or mandatory closures?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was sort of the big question and the biggest challenge at the outset. And there was a lot of dynamics that came into play for us. The first one being that one advantage, even though we manufacture from overseas, everything comes prepackaged, we're ready to ship it out. And the weight of the products, even though they are weighted ropes, is less than dumbbells, is less than treadmills, is less than bikes. And so even though there were concerns about shipping routes and containers and what was going to be going on in China where we were manufacturing, we sort of had this fallback of, well, when there's this many new customers, we can afford to pay the premiums to air freight it over. Well, guess what happened? The air freight rates quadrupled because everyone became an entrepreneur importing masks. So the rates quadrupled, and all the shipping companies started to put like weight limitations that a single entity could ship. And we were able to find some really creative workarounds through multiple freight forwarders, through our partners. And at the same time, we have a great relationship with our partners overseas that are just so good at the production scaling that they were really able to 10x our production volume within about 5 weeks.
That's incredible.
And because of the fact that we had, a lot of times for businesses as well, when it scales up, it becomes really capital intensive. But because, customers were coming in so quickly, we were able to turn around, reinvest that in inventory. And it was really a virtuous cycle that allowed us to fill. We might have been the only fitness company that fulfilled 100% of the demand in 2020. And so it was very rewarding to be able to do that, and a great opportunity just to have more people thinking about jumping rope as a fitness tool that they could use when they were stuck at home.
So when was Crossrope founded? Like, when did you have your first product?
So I worked on it as a side hustle in 2011.
Okay.
That I got an injury. I tore my pectoral muscle bench pressing, so I couldn't work out. Couldn't do my full-time job of flying at the time, and just had always had that entrepreneurial itch. Yeah. And so it took about a year to sort of do what I needed to do to get a website, build some prototypes, and kind of get set up out of my garage. So 2012 is sort of the official launch date of when Crossrope was started, mid-2012.
Okay. So you had 8 years, almost a decade under the belt before we ended up in 2020. But thinking about where you started, talk a little bit about what you saw missing in ropes that were available, because I think that's important for people to understand when evaluating the differences in the ropes or the products that you offer.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think there's broad applicability to anyone that has an idea or is thinking entrepreneurially, because I think the most misunderstood important factor is that you have to be clear on how you're going to differentiate yourself in a way that is easy to educate people on. Mm-hmm. And so for me, a lot of it came from personal experience because, like I mentioned, I ran track and field. I was a sprinter and a jumper, and jumping rope was the only form of traditional cardio that I actually enjoyed, just because I felt like it was more dynamic. And what I mean by that is that, and again, not throwing any shade on any form of fitness, people like it. But when I'd get on a treadmill or go run, same motion over and over again. Rower, same motion over and over again. Swimming, at least you have different strokes.
Right.
But with jumping rope, I love this idea of different skills, different weights, different speeds, all sorts of ways to basically get in your cardiovascular training. And so I had discovered weighted ropes when I was in the Navy stationed overseas for the first time when I was 27.
Okay.
And even though I like jumping rope so much, I thought, how do I not know about weighted ropes where the weight is in the rope, not the handles? Yeah. Because that is a thing, but they're all labeled the same. They're called weighted ropes either way, but it's a very different experience, and most people wouldn't know that. And the problem with the ones that I had used that were out there is that they were very poorly designed. And I kept breaking them. And, I had an engineering background, not that A jump rope is as hard to engineer as some super sophisticated, hardware, software. But
depends on who you ask.
It depends on who you ask. But with that, it planted the seed around this idea of designing a product that even if it wasn't something that could be commercially viable as a business, I would love using it in my own workouts. And so that planted the seed a couple years before I actually started working on the project. And what I found is even with good quality jump ropes where they had ball bearings and they spun smoothly and they had different sorts of materials that they used for the ropes, they started to get more expensive because the quality of the experience really is tethered to the cost of the product in most cases. And so the idea with Crossrope was, what if you had a really high performance, high quality set of handles that you could interchange different weights of ropes, a cross-training jump rope. And I think it was not intuitive because most people would say, well, why don't you just have handles with all the ropes if you want multiple ropes? Well, if you want a quality experience where they're not breaking, like what I had, that's going to be prohibitively expensive. So what I perceived was the value add was this interchangeable system. So Crossrope was the first interchangeable system of its type. And that was really a little bit of the aha, differentiated moment when I decided to pursue launching this and see if other people felt the same way as I did.
And that's something you don't think about. It's not a natural progress in the way you think, or at least me, right? When I'm thinking about a rope, I'm thinking of it as a unit with the handles. And if I want a speed rope, then I need to get a speed rope and it's going to have handles. If I'm going to have a weighted rope, I'm going to need a rope and it's going to have handles with it. And if I want that rope to be heavier, then I buy another rope and it's going to have handles with it. And before you know it, you've got this giant collection of very different handles with ropes. And for anyone who does jump, it's almost like driving a car that you get familiar with, the handle size, the way the handle works. You actually get familiar with that, and that makes the jump a little easier for you over time. And switching ropes is like switching your car. You can certainly do it, but you're very familiar with one car and you take some time to get used to it again, right? So the thought of being able to keep something constant while still having interchangeability is a really, really good idea. It also cleans up what you've got sitting around, right? Like we all end up with these things where we're not using it very much, or it's in the way. Storage is always an issue. And so having the ability to have a constant and then you're putting the other parts together, I think is phenomenal.
Well, that, and I think, within fitness, the idea of variable resistance is common across just about all training tools and training modes. It just really wasn't with jump ropes. A jump rope is a jump rope is a jump rope. And maybe the most hardcore mavens are aware that there were different types of ropes and weights, but for the most part, that wasn't a thing. And so what was interesting is that the advent of the different weights in the system generated authentic interest from the community in content about how to use it, which has primed most of the later opportunities, which was not expected. So sometimes I make fun of myself. They talk about the visionaries that had this grand idea. Crossrope right now is vastly different than what I had ever imagined it would or could be. And I was resistant. And so people would email in after they'd get the different weights of ropes, and they would say, oh, I love this. The quality is great. How do I use it?
Yeah.
And I would get frustrated because I wanted to reply, well, if you had a set of 5, 10, 15, and 20-pound dumbbells, how would you use it?
Yeah.
Like, you decide, however you want. And so I wouldn't respond to him that way. But the point is that as the question kept on getting asked, it really afforded an opportunity to think through ways that we could provide the guidance and the context and the content to make it easy for people to pursue a fitness regimen that, they wanted to do, that they were confident would work. Because most people don't want to think about that stuff. They just want something.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And if that were not true, you would not have the huge industry based around personal training, group fitness, etc. Because trying to develop your own plan, your own routine is very difficult for most folks. And then being able to then stick to it and measure results and then eventually you've got to come up with a new one, right? As you get better and better, it's hard. And so without having some sort of guidance, I feel like those folks that were writing you, right, be like, I got this rope. It's great. I love it. Now, what am I going to do with it? And so it's interesting to hear you say you're a little resistant to it, because it seems natural now, right, that you would need to have programs to go along with it. But it's also just differences in how people think. So I have known people who are very good at what they do, and they take for granted everyone else has at least some level of skill in the thing that they do, right?
Yep.
So, to your point, you had jumped rope before, you used it as a training method in your mind. You're good at it. You got an idea of what you're going to do. You've put together these things in your head. And then it's easy to assume that anybody who's ordering the rope has done something similar. But to be really successful, you want all these people who've never done it before. And so I love that fact that you had to think about how you're going to help those folks out too.
I think I remember hearing somewhere that a lot of times in adulthood, it's difficult for people to change their minds.
Yeah.
And just because you hear that doesn't mean that you're always open to it, but I've been much more attuned. And there's so many times where we all have our own experiences, viewpoints, perspectives, but listening, having that open-mindedness, I think one of the words that you mentioned was interested. I'm interested in why people think what they think, why they do what they do, and that open-mindedness has led to a lot of business decisions that I think were beneficial for the community, beneficial for, the opportunity. And this was just one of the first examples where had I remained closed-minded, we never would have developed the program and the content that really is what people have enjoyed so much the past couple of years.
Yeah, I am a product user, and I actually love the product. I think that it is amazing, and the unboxing is absolutely incredible. And for me, I have regimens, I have things that I do, and I love those things. But it really is phenomenal to be able to have access to, here are some things to think about from a training perspective. And, I don't feel like coming up with what I'm going to do today. I'm on travel. What should I do? Let's look and see what's available. And you can actually start to figure out, okay, I'm going to put this together. And I think that's great.
Yeah. No, it's awesome to hear from you as well. And I appreciated there's been a number of people in the community where I kind of make jokes in a lot of activities. There's not the opportunity for jump rope business deals. Yep. People, you're meeting. It's great to make connections and do things like that. But I've been, I think, so appreciative of the number of people that come to me just asking. And I use the product all the time myself. I don't write my own content anymore because the team, so yeah. It's like when you hear the stories and you feel that the fruits of the team's labor in developing a good experience that people want to engage with. That's I think the most rewarding part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things that I want to pull on a little bit. So you had an injury that prevented you from doing your typical routine, and that kind of sparked the thought process. From what I remember, I understand you've actually, track and field was one thing, but you also were a volleyball player as well, right?
That's right. Yep.
So I don't know that I've actually sat and talked with a volleyball player before. What is that like? You said you were pretty good at it.
Yeah. When I grew up, it was kind of one of the typical suburban neighborhoods, but there was a lot of kids my age, and so it was still that era of going out, playing all the sports. In my neighborhood, when we had touch or tackle football games, some neighborhoods, you got a couple kids, you might have 2v2 with an all-time quarterback. We had 11v11 with linemen. This was the neighborhood game in elementary school, full tackle. We had 9v9 baseball games.
Wow.
We had and so what ended up happening is our neighborhoods. The joke after a while was that there was something in the water, because going into high school, at different high schools and different sports, we had all county athletes, bunch of individuals going D1 in various things. And so for me, when I went to school, jumping always kind of dictated the sports that I liked. I always liked jumping from when I was younger. And I loved basketball. Unfortunately, the school that I went to had one of the top teams in the country. In fact, I like to tell people that the year after I graduated high school, USA Today does this like top 25 boys high school programs. Yeah. Number 1 was St. Mary's, where LeBron James went, and number 2 was my high school. So I have no shame about not making that team. And so, track and field was a good fit for me with the jumping and the running, but volleyball in upstate New York was a thing for boys volleyball. And so I had the privilege of playing with some top-notch players in my senior year in high school. Even though I was about 6 feet tall, which is short for a middle blocker, which in high school typically, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", I could jump really high and I could block and spike. And so it was like one of the most fun things that I've ever done. And it was so, rewarding starting on the team that won the state championship, even though I was probably the worst player on that team. We had some ringers. And so, I think that those competitive experiences and those opportunities in childhood that really developed a love for competition and fitness, and any fitness associated with jumping just carried through even until now.
So are your kids into jumping?
They are a little bit. They're getting gradually more into it, because I think the 2 older ones that are 11 and 10 are finding more interest in the entrepreneurial side of things. Okay. And then that lends to interest in the specifics of it. And so I've been setting up some jumping challenges for them. Today we stopped by the new office that we just moved into, and I let them pick out some products that they could set up and work out with at home. And so they're not fully immersed in, their experience around the 11-on-11 football games isn't as much of a thing. They've done some sports, they've done this and they've done that, but I think that in general, being able to connect with them, do some jumping workouts together, and go from it being more of a lot of resistance. I don't want to do that to, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. I like it. Has been kind of a fun journey the past couple of years. And then the 3-year-old, we have this ropeless product where it's like these end pieces to simulate
Which
it.
I very recently saw.
Yes. Maybe other stories about that if we get to it. But the 3-year-old likes to swing them around and then say, I did it, Daddy. So
that's incredible.
It's been fun.
That's incredible. Well, the ropeless product is very interesting to me. So, I said that it took me a very long time to figure out how to do doubles. And what's weird for me is that I was a very decent single under jumper. Have always been. I could do jogging and single leg jumps and other kinds of things, just spinning the rope. But trying to figure out how to do a double spin per jump was very difficult for me. And one of the ways that I trained it was with ropeless handles. So they had wiffle balls on the end, and you'd spin, and I could hear the ball do its double thing, and I timed that with the jump, and you could watch watch whether or not the ball was spinning on axis with your body.
Absolutely.
If it was moving out, then you need to turn your hands. If it was moving in, you're never going to get the rope over your head. So it was really good at helping determine where the rope should be without always having to whip yourself with the rope to learn what you were doing. But they were nowhere near as sleek as what you have available.
Sure. Well, I think part of the experience and the approach to innovation is not around the lightning bolt moment. Mm-hmm. It's around seeing that there may be products or experiences that are on the right track, but maybe haven't landed in the way of what the vision can be. So, and that I think kind of defines a lot of our products. And so there's good things and bad things about that. The good thing is that you're not coming up with some, flash in a pan, gimmicky, completely risky idea that nobody might like, because there's some level of interest and validation. But the bad side is it does take the extra effort and energy to explain the value and the difference, to my point on the differentiation. But I love the story about the ropeless piece of it and our decision on that, because it was sort of an obvious product extension early on, because we had the interchangeable mechanism. So if you could easily clip in and clip out pieces of rope, lengths of rope that people could jump with, then you could easily clip in and clip out these ropeless attachments. And because it's nothing that's brand new. Some people think that we created it or invented it, but they've been around for, as a formal product, at least 20 to 30 years. And in some capacity, like having a stick with something rotating at the end of it has probably been around for thousands of years,
Right.
So there's nothing completely new here. Now, the reason why I didn't want to launch it is I always kind of had this sense that I didn't want to launch a product where there could be an accusation that a company was just doing it to sell stuff that people didn't need or that was gimmicky or whatever the case may be. And my philosophy was, okay, people, if you're going to jump rope, at least jump over a rope. We can do this, and we'll help get you there. So we are not going to do, the ropeless, the cordless. Like, we're trying to elevate people
my goodness.
here.
Okay.
And so that is literally why I was, very against this idea. But again, I talked about the changing your mind. My mind was changed because one of our partners did a YouTube video profiling some of the biggest transformational stories. And one of the 3 individuals on there was using a ropeless product. And I just started to think more around the lines of environment and accessibility. So what I realized is that there were a lot of people that wanted to jump rope and maybe even could jump rope or would eventually be able to jump rope, but they just didn't have the environment or the accessibility. So for this individual, they had a tight space and they wanted to consume our partner's content on YouTube in front of the TV screen, which if you're packed into a tight space with a TV screen, it's not going to work with those heavy ropes.
Right.
There are others that they, live on whatever story of an apartment complex or downtown, and the bashing of the 2-pound rope on the floor in the morning is not going to win them a lot of friends among their neighbors.
That's right.
There are others with low ceilings. There are others where they have space, but it's too loud and it wakes their kids up when they're working out in the morning. There are others that have lower body soft tissue injuries and the bounding irritates them, or they just don't feel comfortable bounding. There are others that feel like they're not quite ready for the coordination yet, and so they want to work towards that, but it's the frustration of the tripping.
Yeah.
And so the list goes on. And so I thought, I think we've been thinking about this the wrong way. And when we launched the product last year, there wasn't, too much expectation, and it's been crazy. Like it's one of our best-selling products now because there are so many of these different cohorts, even adaptive athletes, those that are in wheelchairs can't walk, can still get the upper body workout. So it's like amazing the number of communities that have responded saying, hey, this, I now feel included in this jumping experience, even though I can't jump right now, or I might not be able to, or I don't have the space or the time or whatever. And so along the way, I also think it's interesting because sometimes polarizing products can be a good thing. And people tend to think that the product is either genius or stupid. And so I actually I'm not TikToking like I used to, but I did a TikTok video that was like genius or stupid. And what I love about this is that whatever the answer is correct. So for those who think that it's stupid, it's not for them. It is stupid for them. If they don't want to use a ropeless rope, if they want to use a regular rope and they have the space and the ability to do so, that's great. I recommend it. That's mostly what I do. If they don't, they think it's genius because now they can be involved in the workout. So there is no wrong answer. It's all a matter of framework and perspective, but you get people talking about it,
You know what, man? Like, I think that the next time somebody pitches an idea and you're like, I don't know about that, you should call me because apparently it all applies to me, right? So I would have raised both hands for a ropeless product because it's perfect for traveling. When you're in a hotel room and you're not exploring what facilities they might have, the rooms are typically not huge. So there are a couple things that I can pop into my my bag and I can use for anything, right? So I am a recent convert to training bands because you can do a lot of things with bands and you can bring them with you. They take up zero space. And if you get to a place and it doesn't have a facility, you can come up with things to do.
Absolutely.
I've been working on body weight training, so calisthenics and gymnastics type things, so that can go with me. And while I take my rope, now thinking about it, there are times that, I'm on the 19th floor of somebody's hotel and I don't have a lot of space to spend. And even if I did, probably the people below me won't like that, right?
Yes.
So that would be a great opportunity to take that. So,
Well, for a while, the portability is a thing and you can take it anywhere, but there should be an asterisk. There should be an asterisk. Don't hit the sprinkler in the hotel room because the ceiling's too low. Don't, wake up your neighbors below. And so, yes, it has become one of these products where even if people jump, they like having it because, we do a lot on the metrics, the statistics, the workout, the programming, and now you're replicating that experience with the product. And then there's other people that are like, oh, but does it work? News alert, if you're moving your body and you're moving weight and there's resistance, it works. Choose what you want to do. Choose that you're going to stick to. Choose what fits within your life. I think most fitness stuff does a pretty good job at being, clear about how to use it and what it's going to do. And instead of people kind of casting accusations of how good it is or isn't, I almost call it, I think we're in this like over-optimization mode. You ever know those people that are like, you gotta do, meal prep 42 meals every week, and you can only eat this, you can only eat that, but then they don't do any of it.
Right.
Because it's too much.
It's too much.
Just like, do something. Do what you can do. Start with something. And so we have a lot of people that maybe at some point they will jump rope more and expand their workout, but ropeless is just something that like, hey, I can do this in my chair for 10 minutes, break a little bit of a sweat, elevate my heart rate, and it is something, and it's straightforward.
That's exactly right. I mean, I'm all about the gateway, right? Whatever it is that gets you through the gateway to whatever goal you're trying to achieve is the most important. And
Absolutely.
So having that as an option, I think, is phenomenal. And I'm glad that you changed your mind because I think there's a lot of people who are now benefiting from that.
Yeah. Anybody listening as well, like the most common objection is I don't jump rope.
Yeah.
And again, we're never hard sell, hard pitch. It's choose what you want to do. We have extremely customer-centric policies, 60-day, no questions asked return. You can beat up the ropes, which is normally not the case. You got to return it in new condition to get a refund. We don't do that. We're just like, hey, we're confident that you're going to like it. We have a super low return rate. It's just people like, you got to take a step and not worry about all the objections. And then if it's not for you, that's fine. But there's so many people that are like, oh, I can do this. And now I feel inspired and I've built a habit and I'm ready to go.
That is absolutely incredible. You talked a little bit about, I think we got here because we talked about that injury, but the other thing that you said prior to the pec injury was that you were flying. And so you were in the Navy and a naval pilot. Mm-hmm. So thank you for your service.
Thanks.
But talk to us a little bit about that experience because, all I think about is Top Gun. And whether it happened like that or not, I'm just going to believe it did.
Well, gosh, I might disappoint you then. It does happen like that for a lot of people, but my sort of priming joke is that there was a old Don Knotts movie, if anybody ever watched Mayberry. This was back in the day. It was called The Reluctant Astronaut, and the entire premise of the movie is that he ends up being an astronaut going to space, but didn't want to do it somehow. and so I, unlike many, I didn't have childhood aspirations of being a pilot, not because I didn't think it could be interesting, but because I get very motion sick. So how are you going to go be a pilot when you get motion sickness? And so what happened is my original plan when I went to Navy was that, to me, the allure of becoming special forces, like Navy SEAL, was cool because I was into fitness and, 18-year-old guy, it's just like Navy SEAL seems cool, seems awesome, seems hardcore. And so when I got to Navy, I realized very early on two things. I like fitness, but I like it on my own terms. A lot of the Navy SEAL training is more around, I think, incredible ability to push through pain tolerance and through, my words won't do justice for those friends of mine and the people that I know that have done incredible things in the Special Forces community. But basically, I'm kind of just saying, as confident as I am in myself, I don't think I would have made it. So tons of credit to those who have done that and a lot of appreciation, admiration, and respect. And then also, I'm just not a great swimmer, which is, number one for sure. So when that plan within about 2 months of being in Navy seemed like it wasn't going to work out, you either go on a boat, you go on subs, you're Marines, or you're a pilot, or you're a naval flight officer. Okay. And so it was a couple of years of evaluating what those opportunities might look like. And one of the rules that they changed was you used to have perfect vision to be a pilot, but because they decided that they could expand the pool of prospective pilots, the year before me, they allowed you to get corrective surgery.
Oh, okay.
And as long as the surgery went fine, you would still be eligible to be a pilot. So I got the corrective surgery and figured that, I'd figure out the motion sickness and everything else sounded like something exciting to do as best as possible.
I don't know how you figure out motion sickness, but okay.
Well, yeah. I went to the initial phase of flight training and I didn't quite figure it out on the first couple of flights. So there was some trials and tribulations with the flight doctor. They'll temporarily let you go on some medicines.
Okay.
And the body really is amazing. Like you can adapt, and at some point you have to wean off the medicines, and you have to be able to adapt, or else you're just going to wash out of the program. So I adapted just well enough to select P3s, which is it's like a 4-engine prop plane. It's about the size of a 737. The replacement, the P8, is, basically Navy outfitted version of the 737 airframe wise. So just to kind of like paint a picture for those who aren't familiar.
Yeah. Okay.
It used to be an anti-submarine warfare platform back in the Cold War era days. And then once after the wall fell and there weren't, massive amounts of Russian subs patrolling the seas, they sort of transitioned it to a reconnaissance aircraft. So we did some reconnaissance, some anti-submarine practice, and a couple other profiles while I was in. And it was a great experience, but it wasn't Top Gun because that plane just flew nice and straight and level. And that's how I like it. So
that's pretty awesome. And so how long did you fly?
So I got my commission as an officer in 2004. I got my pilot wings, kind of like the first phase of training, in 2006. And then I was in operational squadrons from 2006, basically flying until 2013. And then my last tour in was on board an aircraft carrier in port at Newport News for 3 years, but I wasn't flying during that tour. But all in, I was for about 12 years. Most of that I flew. And it really was incredible people, lifelong friends, amazing experiences, a lot of which I think just help so much with entrepreneurship in terms of learning leadership, stress management.
Yeah.
All of these things where you get thrust into these opportunities at an early age are character building and help you to build a lot of the skill sets that are useful for navigating the uncertainties of everything afterwards.
And that's really why I asked the question, right? Because I wanted to understand maybe what are the things that you have experienced previously that maybe brought you to where you are today. And I find that the flight piece really, really interesting. So I have never flown anything, right? But I do find it extremely interesting. So the fact that you're actually flying planes and you were landing planes, like that's very
that's the most important part.
That's very impressive for me. But you've told me before that your sense of direction is not great, and so now we've got motion sickness that you're trying to overcome, you got directional challenges, yet you're flying planes.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, I've always appreciated having self-deprecation as as a fun way, number one, to stay humble, right? A lot of times I think people feel that they have to put themselves in the best possible light all the time. And, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. And I think early on I tried to apply a comedic element to the self-deprecation.
Yeah.
Because number one, I'm not ashamed of things like that.
Yeah.
And I find that it just humanizes the way that you connect with people. So yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. Like, when you are being screened to even become a pilot, they have you take, I believe it's called the ASVAB or ASTB. I can't remember the acronym. I should know all of them, but there's a lot in the military.
I would imagine.
And so I scored very, very well on it. So when it talks about like the sort of thing in the test is like you get a shape and then it says you rotate it 2 times to the right and then upside down to the left, and which one is it? And you're timed on it. And so you have to have that visuospatial perception on those sorts of things. But the direction thing, what I really have struggled with is, somebody says, to go there, just go a mile down the road, take a right, then take a left, then take the next left, then you'll see this landmark, then take a right. And I don't have a great sequential memory
Okay.
for that sort of thing. And I don't have just this general sense of what's where relative to I've been. Like it's in my head and then it's gone.
I gotcha.
And I think this is actually probably a genetic scientific thing for me because there's been other tests that have been done and I just don't have it. I don't have it at all.
That's very interesting because I recently did some testing where it was pattern recognition. And I have an innate ability to recognize patterns. I see them. And it was, they'd have, here's a set of numbers, which number is going to come next. Here's a graph and it's got dots in certain places. And then here's the next graph in the series, which graph is going to come next. Right. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's obvious. It's that one. And so it was good. And I actually have fairly good sequential memory because for mapping purposes, if someone tells me, go a mile, turn left, go 3/4 of a mile, turn right. You'll see this big thing, turn left at that thing, but don't go past this one. I'm very good at doing that. What I'm not good at is cardinal direction. So I can't do head north, head east, head west. Like to me, that stuff, we don't need that anymore. We have follow and go left, go right. We're going to be good with that stuff. It's no more of this, where's the sun and tell me which direction I'm going in, right? So it is interesting just how people's brains process things differently.
Well, that and with the advent of GPS, it's one of those things where, I don't subscribe to the idea of limited brain space per se, but there is time, effort, energy towards learning and retention and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So the reason why the end story is the reason why as a pilot it worked out is because everything's on a compass rose. It's directions, it's radials, even on the old school navigation with TACANs and VORs and not GPS. That stuff I'm all good at because it's numbers, angles, analysis. It's the air traffic controller telling you which way to go and which way to turn. And so I find for anybody, there are many challenges and complexities to being a pilot, but directions to me are way easier than driving directions. So that they got that going for them.
Yeah. One of the things that we actually do have in common is just liking to drive. I'm a driver. I just like to go places and I don't mind driving them. We have a home office that is in Vienna, Virginia. So in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Washington, D.C. is about 4 hours from here. From where we live, it's 3 hours and 55 minutes as long as the traffic is great and go door to door. And I prefer to drive. I also just like driving in general. You like to drive. You're actually much better at the faster driving, track driving than I will ever be. But it's just interesting to think about, you flew, you did a lot of sports, you like driving. So you've kind of got all those things kind of wrapped together because they do have a lot of things in common.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's interesting as well is, I think the competitive element, piece of it is interesting to me. I like, and it doesn't end up being, I feel like I did have the insight early on that competition with other people in certain things can be good, rewarding, and fun, but also there's life choices and there's so many things to do in life. So I think sort of how I evolved was I had an experience in a couple things recently, a lot of the activities that I like doing where I feel like I am the worst and the least competitive at all the things that I like doing relative to others. And so it was a little bit of this self-pity, woe is me, why do I suck at everything moment. And I had a couple interesting insights. Number one, I think what is more interesting is that I do like competing with myself on things. I think that's the thing that's the most important. If I feel like I put effort into something that I want to improve because I get joy and fulfillment from that for whatever reason, that's a lot of fun. The second thing is that when you're a kid and you do a million things, all the other kids are doing a million things too. But I found that adults tend to just do things that they like to do because they're probably decently good at them. So now, across all these things, when I may not be the best one on the track, I may not be the best one on the golf course, on the tennis court, it's because I'm with all of the people that have been good at those things, and that's why they still want to do them. And I'm picking, for a long time.
Yeah.
At least that's my rationalization to make me feel better about it.
Well, I think you should stick there. I think that's a really good way to think about it. I fall in that boat all the time. I don't think that there are things that I would look at and say, wow, I'm very good at those things, and I'm going to do them because I'm better than everybody else. There are lots of things that I do because I enjoy them. And I am constantly comparing myself over time, have I gotten any better at what I can do doing this particular thing? It's hard sometimes not to compare yourself to the people you're with, but I am learning not to do that because, to your point, people have been very good at whatever activity it is for a very long time. I may have started that activity relatively recently and as an adult. And so it's unrealistic to think that I'm going to perform at the level that people who've been doing it as a lifelong activity are going to be able to do. But I can get better at how I perform over time. So I pick my start point. I see where I am there. I then follow that start point and I keep going, right? And so over the course of the last year, I made the decision that I'm going to do lots more body weight type things. I want to be better at physically moving my body around in space. And so I started working on L-sits as an example. I started doing some ring work, and I actually took video of me day one. And I've been comparing this video over the course of the last year or so. And although I think, yeah, you know what? I think I can do this a little better now. It is phenomenal to look at the original video and go, oh my gosh, look at me. I am now a superstar. And, if they have a dropout in Paris during the Summer Olympics, I might need to sub in, right? And so that's one of those things. And I think you're exactly right, though. You do have to think about your point of comparison because it's a losing game if you're going to compare yourself to where everybody else is, particularly if everybody else is elite.
Yeah. I think sometimes there's these different experiences and frameworks, and a lot of times there's nuance to it because I think it's difficult with younger generations as well, where there are competitive systems and elements that are important and relevant and just how the world is. And so I think that there's some level of embracing why that's important. I like even equating to this idea of think maybe thousands of years ago in hunter-gatherer societies, right? I want to be in the tribe with the really good hunters so that I can, if they're competing for who's the best at getting that food, it matters, right? And now we're kind of, in a more, sophisticated society. It's not quite as critically important, but I still think that there is this just human element to the importance of trying to do things and do things well. And we've had that experience professionally and in careers and in business, but I think it's so important to have outlets because I also subscribe to the idea of, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
My wife says that sometimes, and it's a great reminder where you can just kind of get caught up in any capacity and it can take away the joy, the innate joy and fulfillment that you get from an experience or an activity or something that you're working on. So I think everybody benefits just from reflecting a little bit on what they're doing and what success looks like to them in that activity.
And it really does help you to understand much more about the entrepreneurial spirit, right? And so while there are always things that may be the impetus of, it really gives you the drive to create. It's then being driven is internal, and you're really competing with yourself to bring the idea, the product, the notion to life, and then deliver that for the long term. And I think Crossrope is an example of that, right? You have a moment where where things are not going the way you want them to go, but in lieu of staying in that moment, you think, what can I do? I'm going to do this. How do I make that better? And then how do I bring that to other people? And it's that type of internal drive that I think makes people good for competing with themselves and for building things that are really to the benefit of a larger group of individuals. Yeah,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I just think that, and again, not to get overly economic or anything, but, a competitive marketplace is a good thing, and it incentivizes companies big and small to find the new opportunities and to get excited about the prospect of creating value. And that's one of the things I say to my team. We feel very strongly about the level at which we work together, about the culture that we're creating, about what we're doing. And then there's just no two ways to slice it. If people aren't buying what you got, you can pat yourself on the back all day long. But the way that modern societies and economies work is people will pay for stuff that they think is worth it.
That's right.
So it does incentivize us and I think others to be competitive in a healthy way, just trying to do, put our very best efforts together to produce the best products and experiences that we can. And I like to, those are things to pass on to family, friends, kids, everybody else, because I think they're, the DNA of, a lot of the progress in the modern world.
I think that is a phenomenal point. And really, I don't know that we could put a bow on it any better than that. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, but I think that really is a phenomenal way to look at the grander picture. Are there any things that you have that maybe I forgot to talk about that you think are really important?
We've had so many good conversations over the past couple of years. It feels like it'd be difficult to encapsulate that.
This is true. This is true.
And hopefully many more great conversations. But I just appreciate you having such a thoughtful approach to the facilitation, and really an honor for me to kind of share some of my perspectives and experiences on, on the journey. And hopefully, it's some useful, interesting, and, relevant thoughts and ideas, because I think that the time for reflection is just one of the most valuable things that an individual can give to themselves. And I think we're all trying to, might sound corny, make the world a better place in whatever capacity we can.
No, I really, really appreciate this. It's definitely very new to me. There have been times we've had conversations and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to write that down. I need to record that. So it's nice to actually get and sit and talk to you in this format. And to me, it's still very new. And so I am enjoying the learning process. You were very patient as I made the technology do what the technology is supposed to do, because you just never know how it's going to work. But, I think in all the things, I'm growing as an individual, and I really enjoy getting to sit and talk to people about the things that I think they've done that are just really amazing. And I certainly hope that we get a chance to come back and do this again together, because between the stories from Crossrope, the stuff that I do, all the things that we kind of do as a group of folks, I think we'll have other things to talk about soon.
Well, thank you. This was fantastic. So much fun. Thanks, Artis.
Well, thank you for coming. And if you enjoyed this show, make sure to check out the other episodes and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our special guests. Don't forget to rate the podcast and tell your friends. And as always, thanks for spending part of your day with us. Until next time, this has been Uncommonly Remarkable.